This is the BACC live stream, and we have a special welcome for you today.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us every week for our live streams.
We love connecting virtually together, learning together, and being inspired together.
We want everyone to experience the amazing church we have here in the Bay Area.
We have 8 sectors in our church representing each part of the Bay Area, from San Jose to Silicon Valley, up to San Francisco, and across to both Alameda and Contra Costa counties.
The Christians in our church are incredibly inspiring and active.
They love to find new ways to grow spiritually and serve in the community.
The Bay Area is a special place.
Not only is it the hub of innovation, but its diversity and ability to change the world is without competition.
Please subscribe to our channel and also press the like button on this video.
We appreciate the support, and by subscribing and liking the video, the message is able to get out to more and more people.
We hope you enjoy our time together today.
Today we have the special privilege of welcoming our friends from the San Diego Church of Christ who are joining us virtually this morning.
Welcome, San Diego.
We have enjoyed building relationships through California Connection events we have had for years and are now excited to welcome you virtually to our service.
Joe and Annie Silepo and Guillermo and Terry Adami lead the church in San Diego. We are glad to have Joe, Annie, and Guillermo with us this morning.
My name is Joe Silepo, and this is my amazing wife of 34 years as of a week ago. And we lead in the San Diego church as an evangelist and women's ministry leader, along with a great team of evangelists and elders. And we're honored to join with you guys in this worship service. It's really a great privilege just to connect during a time where a lot of people are not connecting. So we're thankful for technology. Annie's going to share.
Joe and I hope, as it reads in Romans 1:12, that our time together will mutually encourage each other's faith.
And my name is Guillermo Adame, and along with my wife Terry, we get to serve alongside Joe and Annie as we get to help with the leadership of the San Diego Church. We are absolutely excited to be joining with all of you this morning. And as Joe and Annie have shared, the San Diego Church is excited about our California connection with the Bay Area Christian Church. But I also want to share how grateful Terry and I are for our relationship with Russ and Gail. Russ and I became Christians during our college years in Boston, and Russ has been a trusted confidant, a voice of encouragement, and most of all, a faithful friend. And I'm wearing my Michigan shirt in honor of our connection with the state of Michigan. There's no substitute for historical relationships and friendships, those that have been with you and still love you and appreciate you, even though they know all of the good and the bad and the ugly of your life. Russ has been there for me, and for that I will always be grateful.
What a fantastic welcome this morning. And that's my boy, Guillermo Adame, who saved my rear end more times than I'm willing to admit. And we're going to delete this from the video so no one ever knows I said that. Yes, historical relationships are so key. And Joe and Annie Slippo, I remember hanging out with Joe. So great to have them and our sector leaders. Wow, what an incredible number of leaders. And as you can see, diverse, and many of them younger than me for sure, by far. And so that's good. They're not younger than Gail because Gail is forever young. It is awesome to have the San Diego Church with us today. And it is awesome to have all the other friends we have all around the world, really, and all around the country. Many who don't go to church at all. Many who don't even really believe in God, but like joining us and being a part of what we do. It's exciting. I want to say this, as I said last week, we want to make sure the Chargers get back home, San Diego, because they don't belong in LA. They're doomed. They're not, they need to come on back. And the Raiders need to do the same thing. Hopefully in our lifetime, they'll come back to their senses. You notice the Michigan church today. I always try to stay true blue, Michigan, or Stanford, true black and red, the tree, go Cardinal. And sometimes I've even begun to accept Berkeley. Some of my best hats and apparel come from Berkeley. Beautiful universities. I don't know how I digressed into that. Very excited about today. You know why I'm talking about all that? Because today is the day we're going to talk about changing the world by changing the church. Wow, that is a big topic. And I'll tell you what, before we get into it, I don't know about you, but I need a sing-along. One of the guys I used to mess around with when he was like 8, 9, 10 years old, we used to do things together because I got him involved in some stuff we did. He grew up to change music in our church. Grateful to have him leading our song, along with a chorus of beautiful voices. Stand Again, John Chris leading, along with an assortment of stars.
Though I've fallen down over 7 times, though I've lost respect in the eyes of men, though I've compromised and I've turned to sins, because His love makes me strong, because His love makes me strong. Because His love makes me strong. Because His love makes me strong. So I will stand again through all the hard times, yeah. I will stand again. Forever my Lord is good. I will stand again. Say through all the hard times, yeah. I will stand again. I will stand again. Though I've entered this world without a thing, I will stand again. And I'm not experienced all that life could bring, I will stand again. I have a story that tells a life of change, I will stand again. Because His love makes me strong. 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 So I will stand again through all the hard times, yeah. I will stand again. Forever my Lord is good. I will stand again through all the hard times, yeah. I will stand again. I will stand again.
It's awesome to hear a song that describes really what being a Christian is all about. Being able to stand through the good, through the bad, through the confusing, through the embarrassing, the shameful, through the opportunities where we have to be bold and courageous and live by faith. Today, no matter what we talk about, I want you to understand we really want to focus in on walking with God. No matter what the points are, that'll be where we go. In Exodus 4:20, it says, "So Moses took his wife and his sons, put them on a donkey, and went back to the land of Egypt, and Moses carried the staff of God in his hand." I've always found that an interesting thing, that God gave Moses a staff, and it was never the staff, but it was the power of God flowing through Moses, and the staff was merely a symbol for us to watch. The power came through God, through Moses. In Exodus 33, verse 14, he said, "My presence will go with you and I will give you rest." You got to go back and read these beautiful passages. When Moses asked, "How am I going to be able to do the incredible things you've called me to do?" God said, "My presence will go with you," if you're looking for where you can get your confidence. And again, in Exodus 33 and verse 14, "How will anyone know that you are pleased with your people and with me if you do not go with us?" Your presence with us will distinguish us from any other people on earth. As Christians, what we have to understand is it isn't our buildings, it isn't even our behavior, it isn't our activities, it isn't the service we do for those who are unfortunate, it isn't the service we do for those who are sick, it isn't the service we do for those who are being oppressed and suppressed by racism, sexism, and elitism. It isn't those things. What really distinguishes us is the presence of God with us as we do those things. And that's something to be remembered. In order to be able to make that clear today, we're going to really zero in on something, our own staff. We put it together, the staff that we can carry, and we're going to pull together some of the beautiful things that we've talked about in the past, the telescope of faith, the vision glasses, the compass of life, and of course the hero's journey. We're going to package those together, and a big shout out to our team. Our team's doing great work. I won't mention their names because they like to go nameless, but let me tell you what, this digital team, I'm like many decades older than they are, and they keep bringing it, and so we're grateful for them. While I'm talking about gratitude, before we go a little bit further, I want to thank one of our musicians who's done an incredible work, Derek and Stacey Clark. Without your contribution, none of what we're doing would be possible. And I want to make sure we do mention your name and your family. They're in our prayers, in our thanks, and there are a lot of people who step up, and I want to make sure I mention them from time to time. And hopefully this week, all of you will enjoy the music we've done, because we probably need to give Derek and Stacy a week off, as well as some other folks. And so you can expect us maybe to repeat a few songs, prepare for that, and please enjoy them so I can let these folks rest, because they're working their jobs during the day, and then they're working this job at night, and they're doing great work for us. So if you know Derek and Stacy, drop them a text even now, encourage them. And if you know other people who've been performing, encourage them. I'm not leaving them out. Everybody's important, but Derek has gone beyond the call of duty, as has our digital team. All right, let's keep rolling. What are we going to talk about today? Change the world by changing the church. Feels good, doesn't it? Not yet. I'm going to let you have a Cinnabon in a little bit, but right now we got some work to do. Now, one of the things I want us to understand is when we do work, that means we got to study. That means we got to put in our thinking caps, as they used to say back in the day. Change the world. That's going to be our first point. You have a lot of points. You know I'm going to give you some stuff to work with, but there's 2 big points. Change the world, change the church. See how that works? Change the world, bam. Change the church, bam. Put them together, Cinnabon. We're going to do it for you. You're going to enjoy it, I hope. Taking an honest look at our world. Let's do it. All right? Change the world. 1 Samuel 17:46. That's Old Testament for those who are not familiar with the Bible. And I know there are a lot of you who are not familiar with the Bible, and that's totally okay. I know there's a lot of you who don't read the Bible. That's totally okay. Hopefully it will inspire you over time, but let's get into the text. 1 Samuel 17:46. This day the Lord will deliver you into my hands, and I'll strike you down and cut off your head. It goes on to say, and the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel. That's a famous story, David and Goliath. And when David is about to kill Goliath, what is he basically saying? The goal of defeating Goliath is that the whole world will know that there's a God. In the Old Testament, God was trying to change the world. He was trying to impact the world. He was trying to bring a shift about in the world. Mark 16:15, we're in the New Testament now, for those less familiar. He said to them, go into all the world and preach the gospel to all creation. Jesus himself, as he's about to ascend and leave the disciples to do the work on earth, he says to them, the goal is the world. And then in Acts 17:30, that's the record of the New Testament church. It says in Acts 17:30, in the past, people did not understand God, and he overlooked this. But now he is telling everyone in the world to change and turn to him. God calls us to repentance, to turn to him, to change the world. What do we want to do? We want to change the world. That's it. Why do we want to do it? Because that's what God's trying to do. There are a lot of people who say, hey, we got to make disciples. We do. Why do we make disciples? To change the world. We got to share our faith. Why do we share our faith? Some people think it's to increase the number of people in the church. No. The reason we share our faith is to change the world. The reason we live the way we do is to change the world. America's confidence in the church or organized religion is going down. It's not good. And I think one of the reasons for that is the church is not changing the world. People see churches as a lot of different things, but they don't equate it with changing the world. And their confidence is decreasing. Note this. I know this is a graph. I got a few for you today. Hang on with the data. From 1973 to 2000, can you see that? 1973 to 2000, 6%. There was a 6% decrease in Americans' confidence in the church from 1973 to 2000. That's 27 years. You all right out there? You doing okay? Now, look at it from 2000 to 2018. That's 18 years, and there's a 22% drop. Something is happening in the world when there's a 6% drop over 27 years, and there is a 22% drop in 18 years. What is that telling you? Something seismic is happening in the world today. What are we doing? We're trying to look at these numbers, look at this data, and look at the world around us, understand we as Christians have to expand the size of our world. For those of you who don't go to church or maybe not a Christian, you probably already have a right view of the world. You probably already know that people are losing their confidence in church, that they don't have confidence in the churches. Expanding the size of our world is what they had to do in the book of Galatians and really in the New Testament. One of the things that's very interesting there is when the church first began, it primarily involved baptizing and converting Jewish people. And then there was a change and a shift in Acts chapter 10 where they began to go and reach out to Gentiles. Gentiles means non-Jew. Jewish is an Israelite. Now, it has nothing to do with current Jews today or any of that kind of thing. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about that time, and we're trying to explain And let's put a little phraseology on it that works for us. The Jewish people of that day were religious. They were the kind of people who went to church all the time. The Gentile people were the people who were not religious. They didn't go to church at all. They didn't believe in God at all. They had a bunch of different religions, and some of them were quite weird, to be honest with you, but that was the world. And so what happened is God said, if we're going to change the world, we've got to expand. What often happens to people who go to churches, their world becomes their church. Why am I saying their world? Our world. I'm religious. Our world becomes our church. And all that we see are our friends in church. What's everybody feel in church? Am I popular in church? Am I a leader in church? We're doing that over and over and over again. And we start to live in this bubble of unreality. In Galatians 2 and verse 6. As for those who were held in high esteem, this is Paul talking, whatever they were makes no difference to me. God does not show favoritism. They added nothing to my message. He's talking about the influencers and the powers that be in the church. And he's saying in the global church, it doesn't matter to me what their standing is. God doesn't play favorites because of the label you have or the name you have or the reputation you have. Then he goes on in verse 7. On the contrary, they recognized that I had been entrusted with the task of preaching the gospel to the uncircumcised, just as Peter had been to the circumcised. I think I just confused you. Jewish Christians, religious. Gentile Christians, not religious. Uncircumcised people are the unreligious. They're the non-religious. You okay out there? I know I'm throwing a lot at you, but I see you Stanford people. You're ahead of me. You probably already know where I'm going. I see you Berkeley people. You're like, yeah, I wrote a paper on that already and turned it in, and I got an A. Maybe I should give it to Russ. He'd be clearer. I get it. We're working with some brilliant people out there. I see some of you people in Alameda, you're going, we already got this. Can you move on? We're there. We got it. We nailed it. I see you guys in Santa Clara, got your notebooks out, pencils out. We're doing some work this morning. It's called spiritual work for those who are unfamiliar. Now, church membership among U.S. adults has declined, especially in the past 20 years. So not only are people not confident in the church, they're not going. But that makes sense, right? If you're not confident in something, you don't go. A lot of us think that people don't go to church because of our personality. No, it's not our personality. It's that if you don't have a church that changes the world, then why go? Why would I get up on a Sunday morning or go get out of my house on a Wednesday night and go to anything if it's not going to change my life and it's not going to change the world? So let's take a look at this one. All right, I'm going to try to keep it simple. 1938, that's a long time ago. All right, that's a whole long time ago. I think that's when Stone Eliezer was born, but you can ask him about that. I don't know. I'm not good with dates. 1938. All right, so you got 1938 to 2003. All right, zip, bam, look at that. All right, there's a 9% decrease in 65 years in church membership. Boy, let's hang on to that. I'm hitting you with some real data, and I know some of you don't like numbers, but you know what? We're in Silicon Valley. At least I live in Silicon Valley, and numbers are data, and data is magic. And if you let it sink in, you'll realize here's why we need data. Our emotions lie to us. Our feelings lie to us. We sit in the bubble of church and we tell ourselves, oh, we're changing the world. But the world out there is going, we don't even know you exist. That's what the world is saying. In 65 years, 38 to 2003, 9% decrease in membership. But look at this, 2003 to 2018, a 14% decrease in membership. A 14% decrease in membership in 15 years. Something seismic is happening. I know it's very jolting for those of us who are churchgoers. It's very overwhelming. But let's take a look at what's going on today in the world, right? We see the marches on behalf of those, the blacks, African Americans, who are being oppressed, suppressed, brutalized by the forces and powers that be. We're looking at 400 years of suffering by African Americans. And as many would say, who have handled it pretty well, because African Americans didn't go out and start a Ku Klux Klan to go out and fight. They didn't do a civil war. They've actually tried to hold to the democratic ideal of the Constitution of America, and that's a good thing. What we have to understand, though, is one of the reasons that's going on, a little history right here, is one of the ways that slave owners kept slaves, black slaves enslaved, was they used the Bible. And they taught that the Bible, in it, Abel was the white guy, Cain was the black guy. They taught black people not only were they less, but that they were dangerous. And this same kind of thinking went along for a long time. Why am I telling you about that? Because there are historical loads of data, historical records that will tell you this. Groups have been oppressed for years using churches and using the Bible. And until churches transform in a way that the world around us says, wow, I've never seen anything like that. That's totally different than what I expected. Until we do that, we're going to continue to see a decline. Now, I know some of you out there may be shaking your head and disagreeing. That's why I brought the data. This is not about my feelings. This is not about your feelings. This is about what is the world saying. They're not having confidence in church. They're not going to church. It's not because they're evil people. Evil people don't hit the streets and march and fight for the rights of the oppressed that they don't even know. George Floyd. That was done by people who are moved to change the world. But if they don't make a connection between the fact that the church is a place that changes the world, then there will not be an attraction without that connection being made. The Gentile church, building a church for the unaffiliated. You doing okay out there? Am I going too fast? Hope not. Hang in there. Beautiful thing is you can watch this again and take some time to go through it yourself. You can check the data and look stuff up yourself. Galatians 2:8. For God, who was at work in Peter as an apostle to the circumcised, was also at work in me as an apostle to the Gentiles. James, Cephas, and John, those esteemed as pillars, gave me and Barnabas the right hand of fellowship. When they recognized the grace given to me, they agreed that we should go to the Gentiles and they to the circumcised. What do we learn here? Back in the New Testament, they went, wait a minute, we've got two kind of groups out there. We've got people who really they're already religious, they're just looking for the truth. They need to find the truth. And then we got people who are not religious. So you got to build two kinds of churches. You got to build a church that finds people who are religious and says, hey, here's the truth that you've been looking for. And they can go, yeah, we found it. But you got to also build a church that people go to that they can go, hey, I don't like church. I don't have anything to do with it, but this makes sense to me. That's what they did in the New Testament, and that's why they changed the world. They didn't have a one-size-fits-all. They said, we've got to build a panoramic sort of arrangement of churches that go into the communities, meet the needs, and attract people through the inspiration of being what God wants us to be. That's what we're doing here in the Bay Area Christian Church, folks. Some of us are trying to figure out, why do we keep pushing the envelope? Why do we keep trying to change things? Why do we mix things up? Why do we do things? Because we're trying to figure out not how to keep us happy in the bubble, but how to burst the bubble and let a whole lot more people in. And as you can see from the live stream, as people start to hear what's going on, we're getting 60,000, 40,000, 8,000 of people coming and watching. We long ago blew away our best attendance in our church, which had previously been like 4,500, 4,800, almost 5,000. We went past that, balloon past it. Why? Because what people are seeing is music. They're seeing lyrics. They're seeing sharing that is reaching out and saying, this is not about going by rules. This is not about being part of some structure. And this is not about being a racially segregated church where black people go here, white people go there, Asian people go there. We're getting a collection of diverse people together doing creative, innovative things that meet the needs of people in two ways. It gives them God in a way that is palpable, digestible, and attractive. And it shows them good, because that's what we're about, doing good. Hey, that's pretty exciting, I think. That's why I go here, I guess. The prophets, Abraham J. Heschel, one of the best theologians, Jewish theologian of all time. He says this: the importance of prophecy lies not only in the message, but in the role of the prophet as a witness, someone who is able to make God audible and to reveal not only God's will, but inner life. To be a prophet, he writes, is to be in fellowship with the feelings of God. I believe that there are people all around the world who are crying out for that. And I think we have to correct it by transforming our own individual relationships with God. That's what I've been working on for all these months of shelter in place. And we have to correct it by transforming our collective relationships with God. We can change the world. I believe that 100%. Is religion increasing or losing its influence on American life? Is this a good thing or a bad thing? You can go see the data at Pew Research, but we boiled it down to just get a good idea of what does the world think. Here's the bottom line. An average of 65% of Americans believe religion is losing its influence on American life. When you look at that and you see the green, those are all the people who believe it's losing. The general public, 66% of people say religion is losing its influence. Unaffiliated, don't belong to any kind of church, don't go to one, 63%. Atheist agnostics, 59%. Don't you think that's interesting that people who believe in God but are not affiliated with the church believe that religion is losing its influence more than an atheist does. And those who have nothing in particular going, they say 65%. I know for some of us, numbers can be numbing, but maybe it's not the numbers. Maybe it's what the numbers represent. That we're sitting in church convincing ourselves that something is happening in the world that is not happening. The world is not getting more influenced by church. And it's our job to change the church so it can change the world. And you know one way to kind of get yourself a little bit more spiritually there? Deep spirituality. Take a look. This will tell you how to get on board, get some tools to help you and I get our relationship with God strong enough that we can be able to change all of these numbers.
Our plan when reading our Bible, praying, and staying close to God each day is not always a clear-cut path. DeepSpirituality.net has been a great and valuable resource for us when our work in optometry and fitness challenges our minds and schedules. It often helps us to connect and stay closer in our marriage and feel growth in our family and other relationships. I enjoy the devotionals that take my topical Bible studies deeper and help me find answers. At times when I don't have a clear plan of what I want to study and learn, the site offers options and direction like the new Deep Dive series, which lays out multi-day plans.
I played 7 years in the NFL, and Deep Spirituality has been a great tool for me. You know, I've dropped the ball in a lot of different areas of my life, in my marriage, in parenting, being a father. They have very specific Bible studies that help you in whatever area that you need. I've also listened to the podcast. I used to listen to it every day before training, and that was very useful and helpful because it made me feel like I was sitting in on a conversation with people discussing topics that I was currently dealing with.
I really love Deep Spirituality because as a college student, my schedule can get pretty busy. This past semester, I was trying to balance school, leading a club, working part-time, and maintaining somewhat of a social life. Deep Spirituality is great because it's so convenient. I can open my phone, scroll through a bunch of different devotionals, and find a study that's perfect for whatever I'm going through.
When you're a healthcare worker and a dad of a 6-month-old and have to be at work most days before 6 o'clock, getting a handcrafted quiet time emailed to you in your inbox is definitely a game changer for me.
These are definitely challenging times, but DeepSpirituality.net has given us great resources to help us through this time.
It really has helped us to go deeper, to see areas in our lives that need change that otherwise we will not have seen on our own.
Since subscribing to get emails from DeepSpirituality.net, I love looking in my email inbox each morning and finding something that's going to help me with my faith. Maybe it's just going to help me deal with my guilt. It's also a great resource to just pay forward to our friends. If they're struggling with something or need some help, if there's an article that we've read or a study or a podcast or a video, we can pass it along.
I absolutely believe that each one of us working every day in our own walk with God and developing the kind of inspiration, the kind of humility, the kind of power, and the kind of courage that God can put into our life that Jesus walked with, I think we can change things. I think all the data, and I apologize again for those who get a little overwhelmed by data, but I think we got to look at these things. We have to really study them. I know, some of us get tired of it. We really got to force ourselves to look and say, what are we dealing with in the world? What is the world telling us? What's interesting about the New Testament church, they understood that they had to have a Jewish church that reached out to religious people. They had to have a Gentile church that reached out to non-religious people. But they said no matter what, you've got to take care of the poor. Look at this. Now, Galatians 2:10. All they asked that we should continue to remember the poor, the very thing I'd been eager to do all along. Basically, they're saying you build the kind of church you need to build to reach the people that you need to reach, but make sure that whatever kind of church you're building, you meet the needs of the poor. And that brings to the question, who are the poor? Faces of Poverty by Michael B. Salter of the USA Today, he writes this quote, both personal responsibility and structural pressures can lead to poverty. Structural pressures, he's referring to racism and other things. Both personal responsibility and structural pressures can lead to poverty. And experts often argue which affects poverty more. But some factors outside of the control of the individual, including being a woman, Black, Hispanic, a child, or a disabled person, are an indicator that one is more likely to live in poverty. If we're going to change the world, we're going to have to tackle poverty. If we're going to change the impact of racism, I'm not talking about just racism, but change the impact of racism, we're going to have to attack poverty. Take a look at this. I know, more data. I get it. I love it. Look at this right here. Poverty rate by group. Hispanics have a 19.4% poverty rate. Black and African Americans have a 23% poverty rate. American Indian and Alaska Natives, 25.4% poverty rate. Americans with a disability, 25.7%. Single recent mothers, 44.3%. So before we leave America, before we invest in any kind of dealing with the poor outside of America, let's ask ourselves the question, how much is our church doing in our own backyard? I think one of the best ways to show that we respect the impact of structural racism, systemic, ordered racism, at minimum, the impact of it since the 40s as far as the structural part of Jim Crow. How do we do it? We've got to say, what is our church doing and what are the individuals in our church doing to change poverty amongst Black and African Americans? How are we voting? How are we participating in a democratic society? How are we building our church and what are we giving to? It's a good challenge, but we can't neglect all the others as well. But imagine if you're any of these people and you're disabled as well. Notice that after single recent mothers is people with disabilities. This should encourage all of us in the Bay Area Christian Church. Why? Because we have a radical devotion to taking care of people with disabilities and their families. And when we take care of people with disabilities and their families, we are taking care of the poor. People define the poor often as not in America. Well, guess what? America's got a lot of poor. We have a lot of people with disabilities, and they suffer every day. And it's going to be a quest of mine to get us all inspired to say, hey, before we do anything else, what Latino neighborhoods are we going to? What Black and African American neighborhoods are we going to? How much are we going out and volunteering to help those with special needs in their life and with their poverty challenges? How much are we doing for single recent mothers? Looking around and saying, how can we help? That's a lot to deal with, but that's our package for changing the world. That's the things we're up against and we can make a difference on. Now, guess what? You may be sitting there going, man, what do I do with all that? Take a deep breath. It's not time for a Cinnabon. You got to burn a few more spiritual calories. Take a deep breath, and I want you to think about this. Everything I just told you is the dream. Our dream is to change all of that, to give people confidence in church, to give people hope that is Christians and the disciples of God who change the world, to give people that sense that when I'm in need, I know where to go, that God working through us, we can fix it. That God working through us, we can make a dream happen that makes so many more millions of lives better. And for many of us who are older, we got to rekindle that dream. For some of us who are millennials and Generation Z, we've got to get a hold of that dream. Not a dream of the world, not how can I go in politics and change the world, but how can I go and change the world by changing lives and making more Christians? Because when you build up more Christians and you get people with more faith, all of that data changes. You know what I'd say we got to do when we get into our Bible and we get into our prayer lives and we get out there in the streets of life, even in the midst of the coronavirus? We need to be men of dream. We need people who can help fix lives. I've got a Freedom Flows for you, and I think it's going to bring it all together. Enjoy.
Lights will
When our souls were like the desert and our songs brushed like a stream, found revival in the water. We became like man would read. Yes, our mouths were filled with laughter, and our songs rushed like a stream. Where he was, our thunder, we became like men who dream. Tears stream down your face. I promise you I will learn from my mistakes. Tears stream down your face and lights will guide you home and ignite your bones, and I will try to fix you.
All right. Now, first of all, instant classic. I don't rate all the songs as instant classics. That's an instant classic in the archives. You will see that one again for sure. Don't you feel better? I didn't want that song to end, quite frankly. I wanted it to just keep going on. Yeah, and not ever speak again. I hope you're ready to dream. I hope you're ready to think that we can fix things. And I want to say a little word to all our African American kids out there, our black kids out there who are younger. We're going to fix this. We're going to work as Christians to make sure that the world you grew up in is a lot better. And I want you to know this, no matter what you see on TV, no matter what you see or hear from social media that's negative, that there are many of us who are African Americans who've been able to achieve a certain amount of success in life all around. And you're going to be like that too. So make sure if you hear any negative things, you understand your life does matter. You do have a great future, and you can dream. And because African Americans are moving in that direction, it's going to help Latin Americans, it's going to help Asian Americans, it's going to help white Americans, it's going to help all Americans, and it's going to make this world better. In order to do that, we got to dream, and we got to change the church. How can we build a church to inspire the unaffiliated? I hate to use that word at the end, but I couldn't come up with a better one. How do we reach people who just don't have confidence in church and don't much like it? Let's get into it. We have to have a transformative moment. We talked about that last week. I am the true vine, and my Father's the keeper of the vineyard. My Father examines every branch in me and cuts away those who do not bear fruit. He leaves those bearing fruit and carefully prunes them so that they will bear more fruit. Already you are clean because you have heard my voice. The first thing is we have to resist religiosity and pursue spirituality. When we pursue spirituality, we're pursuing God. We're not pursuing behavior. We're not pursuing rules. We're not trying to perform. We're seeking a relationship with God, not trying to provide God with a performance. And when we do that, we bear fruit. We bear fruit in our own life, our own heart. We change, we grow, we bear fruit in our marriage, we bear fruit in our kids, we bear fruit in our friendships, we bear fruit in our job at work, we bear fruit in our community efforts to serve the poor, to push for righteous justice for people who are suppressed and oppressed. We bear a lot of fruit. In other words, we make a huge difference in people's lives. You know, one of the best stories of the week is about to come up. It's one of my favorites because all the guys in it are friends of mine. It's a story of the week about just that, transformative moments in change. Let's take a look.
I'm Nick Straw, and I lead the Silicon Valley South part of our church with my wife, Jen. And I want to tell you a story about friendship and brotherhood that leads to changed lives. Since becoming a Christian during my senior year at Santa Clara University, it has been my prayer and dream to help my friends and family change in the same way I did. One of my friends from college that I started to pray for was Dele. We stayed in touch over the years, and God used that to orchestrate something big. After college, I reached out to my younger brother, Cameron, who studied the Bible, radically changed his life, and became a Christian. He then did some volunteer work for Dele's older brother at a nonprofit in East Palo Alto. Through that, he met Dele's younger brother, Remy. Cam and Remy became friends, and we studied the Bible with him together, and Remy became a Christian soon after.
Growing up in a really religious household, where a lot of our value was, what do people think of us? And so it just created a lot of deceit. I feel like at a certain point, I didn't even know who I really was. When I came into, Bay Area Christian Church and met Cam specifically, for the first time in my life, I had a friend who kept it really, really real with me. And so his example really helped me. He also was the first person who sacrificed for me. He would meet up with me daily and taught me and walked with me. And I had to overcome some of just the prejudices I had against white people. I had to challenge some of the thoughts that he had, but really it's the hard stuff. And I still feel like even in our friendship, we can actually dig past the surface. And what I learned is that honesty actually breeds closeness. And it led to a level of intimacy in my relationships that I had never experienced before.
Remy's girlfriend Kendra also studied the Bible and got baptized the same day as Remy. They rebuilt their relationship and are now happily married with 2 kids. After Remy's life change, God answered my prayer for Dele from years earlier. Remy and I studied the Bible with Dele, and he also became a Christian.
One of the places where he knew I was passionate, which was basketball. So he invited me to the church league. I loved the competition. It was fun. There was just good people, good vibes. After seeing my brother study the Bible and he started to share a lot of his journey, he really inspired me just with his honesty, his raw truth. I never heard that type of truth come from him. And because I was an entrepreneur, it's easy to really pour, an extraordinary amount of time into building my company. And although I had some success, it really came at the cost of relationships. So one of the things I learned is how to love anything else outside of my own job and career or things that would make me look good. And that led me ultimately to becoming a married man, ultimately having a wife and, having a loving relationship. I wouldn't have been able to really be in this relationship or maintain it at all had it not been for my relationship with God. So for that, I'm forever grateful.
Now Remy and Dele, along with their wives, continue to live out God's purpose by making a tremendous impact in the community here in Silicon Valley and using the Bible to change lives. If you have a story to share, you can send us an email here to live@bacc.cc.
That's an incredible story. I told you it was going to be incredible. Shout out to Team Asfaci. If you want to be a baller, you want your kid to be a baller, you can look that up on the web. Dele, Remy do that. East Palo Alto Boys and Girls Club. Shout out East Palo Alto Boys and Girls Club, where we can really do some great work. If you want to volunteer or get involved there, send us an email and we'll connect you with Remy and Kendra. And congrats to Kendra. She's going to get her PhD at Stanford in education, and she's going to shake that world up. That's what I'm counting on. And we can see, one, racism in education be knocked out. I don't want to put any pressure on them, but I'm just very excited. Let's get practical. Let's dig in and go, okay, what do we actually have to personally do to make the church a place that's attractive and can inspire those who don't go to church and have no interest in God? We can do this. That was me. I was a total agnostic, didn't go to church, had no interest in church, was negative on church, was negative on Christians, and guess what? Here I am. How'd that happen? Because people actually had some magic in their life. They had some power in their life that I met. It wasn't about that they just were religious. In fact, the guys I got to know, they weren't all that religious, so probably it was very helpful. They were inspiring though. Inspiration. What we have to do, all of us in our relationship with God, is go, am I inspiring? Am I inspired and am I inspiring? And that comes down to being connected or disconnected from God. Abide in me, and I will abide in you. A branch cannot bear fruit if it is disconnected from the vine, and neither will you if you are not connected to me. Scott Green's one of my best friends ever, and he was in the little posse I traveled with Guillermo Adame and Frank Kim and Brian Scanlon and Rob Burns, a bunch of us. We were college students. And guess what? We would talk about this passage, and we all believed, and Scott Green particularly led me to believe, this was a passage about relationships. For some of us who are older, we may think it's a passage about growth. We may think it's a passage about church growth. We may even have remembered it as a passage about how you manage a church. None of that's true. It's a passage about connection or disconnection. How are you living in your relationship with God? Are you emotionally connected to God? Are you spiritually connected to God? Does obedience flow from your love for God, or does obedience flow from a fear that you may fail and people may look at your behavior negatively? Inspiration comes from connection. That's where your faith gets built up. That's where my faith gets built up. That's where we get the hope after we failed. That's where we get the sense that we can get past our sins. That's where we get the sense that we can get past our guilt, that we can get past our mistakes, that we can get past all of the burdens of the past that weigh on our soul, that give us a crisis of soul. That's what inspiration is all about. And guess what? That's the first part of our staff, the staff of God, our personal staff of God. And yep, you know what that is up there at the top. That's the telescope of faith. You can go back and look at our live streams from earlier, but we're going to be able to insert all the little things we've learned about right into the staff. How about that? We'll be able to take it all. Let's keep going. I'm slowing down. I can't slow down. Humility, obedience, or resistance before God. I should slow down. I think you guys are. You know what? A couple more slides. I'm gonna let you have that Cinnabon. Keep your hands off the Cinnabons for now. Okay. Burke household. I know you got Cinnabons. Easy. Don't open that package yet. Humility, obedience, or resistance before God. I am the vine, and you are the branches. If you abide in me and I in you, you will bear great fruit. Without me, you will accomplish nothing. If anyone does not abide in me, he is like a branch that is tossed out and shrivels up, and his leader gathered to be tossed in the fire to burn. Everybody always goes, I used to go say this, oh, they're going to be tossed in the fire to burn in hell. Oh, I'm not sure that's what that says. He's telling us that the way that the church works, it's a lot like a yard works. And when branches shrivel up and die, and they fall to the ground, whether they're cut or not, basically there's no value in them. They now are firewood. In other words, when we don't have God in our life, we dry up. And we're basically, our only purpose is to bring heat, I guess. There's no real growth value anymore. We want to have growth value, and that comes by abiding in God. That comes by knowing that there's nothing we can accomplish without God. And I think we got to believe that thousands of people, millions of people can be reached, that they can find out about God, they can find out about the truth, if we will just say, this has got to be done through humility. Not us talking about how great our strategy is, not us talking about how cool our church activities are, but us getting down into the nitty-gritty of saying, do I have an obedience to God, or do I have a resistance to God? Abiding in God, abide comes from the word abode, which means to make your home there. Is my home with God, or am I kind of renting? Am I kind of just showing up every now and then? We got to really work on it. It takes humility. For me anyway, I don't know about you. It takes humility for me to go, Russ, I'm inadequate. I know that. I'm unworthy. I'm incapable. I'm not smart enough. This thing's got to be done with God. And if it ever fails, it's because I left God, not because God left me. And if we dive into that level of humility, I think amazing things will happen. And there you have it. You got the telescope of faith and the hero's journey, because it takes humility to travel that hero's journey. And see, we get to put the map right in the old staff of God. You see that right there? You got the telescope, put the map in there. It's getting fun. I know it is enjoyable. Guess what? I talked about obedience or resistance. Sometimes that resistance kind of gets us. But I want to bring in our experts to help us understand that. Sunday morning jetpack, let our experts explain resistance to change and maybe becoming spectators. Let's see what they've got.
What's up, guys? This is Sunday Morning Jetpack. I'm Kenzo, and I'm here today with Parker, Alexis, Layla, and Mondell.
So we're going to do things a little bit differently today. And honestly, we kind of struggled coming into this conversation with thoughts, because we've been just seeing how much our fear has really led us to stay selfish and not really change ourselves. And I know for me, I resist change because I just hate admitting that I have need. And if I need to change, then that means that I'm failing, or that means weakness. And so then I don't actually ask for help or admit that I need my friends, I need God, because I want to do everything myself and figure it out myself.
Yeah, I totally relate to Alexis. For me, that translates to being busy and feeling the need to like do a bunch of tasks or activities, because I can think like, oh, that's how I'll like inspire people or like seem like an inspiration because this girl can do a ton. But I'm realizing that like even my friends, they've expressed to me that it actually hurts them. It doesn't allow opportunities for them to grow or to develop their character.
Yeah, and no matter who you are, if you're listening to this, and that includes the people here, God is calling you to do something great. And it's easy for me to look at something like the church and not realize that we actually need to take responsibility and take action. It's not other people's business. It's not someone else's job to do it. It's our job. So let's take a look at Romans 12. It says, "Don't copy the behavior and customs of this world, but let God transform you into a new person by changing the way you think. Then you will learn to know God's will for you, which is good and pleasing and perfect." And you know, too many of us here are spectators, and I'm talking to the group of people here too and me. It's not just you guys, but it's obvious we need to step up and let God transform us in order to change the world around us, because the world really needs it right now, and there's a lot of darkness out there, and it's up to us to actually do something about it.
You know, I feel like I had to give God a shot. I feel like I had to open to others, but also express, who I really was. I feel like before my purpose was just to play football. My mindset was just so focused on football, but it wasn't about, what about others? And I feel like now my purpose has changed. Now I'm going to school to become a speech pathologist. I'm also in the process of building a school for kids, and also I've gotten some opportunities to be able to coach quarterbacks. So I feel like I had to really let God really transform my mind to allow me to become who God really wants me to become.
All right, our movie recommendation for this week is Star Wars Empire Strikes Back. I know this movie is twice as old as I am, but there are still some valuable lessons we can pull from it. Yoda challenges Luke to believe in changing what he thinks is impossible. Yoda talks about there being no difference to move things with the Force, big or small. Yoda says, no different, only different in your mind. You must unlearn what you have learned. And when Luke says he'll give it a try, Yoda responds, no, try not. Do or do not, there is no try. Like Luke, it can be really easy to feel like you can't grow past a certain point. Change feels impossible when you're stuck in a certain way of thinking. But just like the earlier scripture says, we have to let God transform the way that we think. Today, each of us needs to make our own choice to change, because God's destiny for us is not just about ourselves, but also about the people around us.
And that's your Sunday morning jetpack. We'll see you guys next time.
Sunday morning jetpack, bringing it in hot, hot, hot. I love it. Power. Change your stagnation with God. John 15:7. If you abide in me and my voice abides in you, anything you ask will come to pass for you. You know what? Inspiration, humility, those are great, but we got to have power. This world is too tough. We got to have power. Power to conquer sin, power to conquer doubt, power to conquer obstacles, power to overcome our weaknesses, power to gain the talents and learn the things we need to learn to be able to give back and change the world better, power to overcome the things from the past that maybe traumatize us and make us feel inadequate or worthless. We need power, and that power comes from changing our relationship with God rather than getting stagnated in our relationship with God. If we're going through our relationship with God and we're just reading the Bible and we're kind of reading it, we don't even remember what we saw, we don't even remember what we heard, and if we're praying and we walk 15 feet, 20 feet, 150 feet, we walk for 20 minutes and we come back home, we don't even remember what we said, that's a stagnated relationship with God. Look, you can change it. My relationship with God at various times in my life has been a disaster. I remember going to church at different times and not even being able to remember what the sermon was after the church was over because I was doing so bad spiritually. Anyone can change. It's a miracle I'm even talking here. I mean, it's a miracle. I can't even believe it. Sometimes I stop, look at the live stream and go, who is that guy? That's not me. That's what God has done. Power for you young guys out there and young ladies out there. But as Sunday Morning Jetpack talks about, we need you millennials. We need you, Generation Z, to have that energy, but also that application to make a difference by studying the Bible with your friends and inspiring your friends about God. Now, we're putting some packages together here. We got your inspiration, telescope of faith, humility, the hero's journey map, power, the vision glasses. We're putting it together. You ready to go on a walk with God? Oh, we're going to put you on one right here. Before we do that, though, we got to show you what power does. When you get power in your life, guess what? You can change people. You can change people, and people are even changed in, well, let me not explain it. Here's our story of the week.
My name is Margot Colvin. My husband Scott and I are so grateful to be with the amazing people in Silicon Valley North part of our church. It has been said, the great use of a life is to spend it for something that will outlast it. Our friend Sharon Lopez spent every second of her life doing what she believed in most, changing lives. Though Sharon's body succumbed to cancer on March 29th of this year, her spirit lives on in the lives of her family and friends because of her unbridled passion for God's purpose of changing lives. Faith is contagious. How God can use one person who is determined to believe, help another person have a breakthrough. This is the story of Sharon and Mary Beth. When Sharon was diagnosed with cancer in November of 2018, she valiantly beat it back month after month, day after day. She endured hospitals visits, treatments, and tough news with a faith, joy, and a determined spirit few of us can muster even in good times. Even though the battle drained her physically, she never lost her passionate spark for God's purpose to change lives. Soon after Mike and Sharon moved to Foster City in 2019, Sharon met Mary Beth. Mary Beth was struggling, stuck, and in need of a change. Once they met, they realized they had so much in common: dyslexia, a chemical dependency background, and possibly most importantly, a love for Giants baseball.
I think Sharon was probably the best person to teach me all that, because she had nothing to hide and she was going for it all. She wasn't going to let me not see something when it was the truth. And she wanted to make sure I saw it. And Sharon was so willing to allow me to see that, to help me grow as a disciple. And it wasn't hard for me to give anything to Sharon. I mean, I'd do anything for her. If she needed to go to a doctor, say, okay, I'll go. To be able to have a Sharon Lopez in one's life who had such an impact on so many people. How lucky for me that God helped me see something differently from another perspective through Sharon's eyes. God put us together, and he did it for a reason, for her and for me, and I'm so grateful for it.
Sharon's life and her friendship with Mary Beth stand as a shining example of what God can do with a life lived with a fiery passion to make a difference in the lives of others. If you have a story to share, you can send an email to live@bacc.cc.
Mary Beth, again, congratulations, and thank you for your eloquent description of the way God worked through Sharon Lopez, a friend of so many of us, certainly the Lopez's friend of our families, and Sharon was a true blue Michigander. Go blue. Sharon, I know you're listening, so I got to make sure I say that. Courage. We just saw a great example of courage, didn't we, in Sharon Lopez? The courage to save even while watching your life be assaulted by cancer. She inspired us all, and she's inspiring us in this moment, as is Mary Beth. Courage, boldness or timidity for God. Your abundant growth and your faithfulness as my followers will bring glory to the Father. I think oftentimes we don't talk about courage, but we need to. We need to think about it and talk about it, because so much of what we don't do, well, let me not talk about just you or me, but me. So much of what I don't do is fear. Fear of failure, fear of criticism, fear of negative reactions, fear of resistance, fear of hurting my own life by overextending myself, fear. And yet the Bible tells us that when we're connected to God in that extraordinary way described in John 15, connected to Jesus and through Jesus God, abundant growth happens. It's like a flow. It's a power. And I think we need to believe as Christians we can change this world. We can beat back racism. We can beat back an anti-immigrant attitude that forces some of our Latin American brothers and sisters to have to carry around their identification because they're afraid if they get stopped, they'll be assumed to be non-citizens. We have to beat back the mistreatment, the lack of pay, the lack of respect for women. We have to beat back all of the things that are done to prevent kids that are of color not getting treated the same, both by the justice system and by school systems. We have to fight that. But we don't fight it by being angry. We don't fight it by hating people. What we do is we help. I believe one of the greatest things I've seen in my life are people who work for the police department becoming Christians, and we have a number. And when those people become Christians, you see how much their heart is to serve people, and that's what they get into it for. But they have to see some ugly stuff, just like people in the military. And we have people who fought in the military, who fought in wars, and they have to see ugly things. And to keep their hearts right, they need God to be able to help them as they are courageous. Let's all take in our hearts a mindset that we cannot have a great relationship with God and be fearful people in this world. We cannot have a great relationship with God and be afraid to do this, to invite our friends to study the Bible, to sit down and share, just like Sharon did with Mary Beth. Here is what has changed my life and made victory possible. I think too many of us have goals that don't involve helping someone become a Christian. Too many of us have goals that don't involve doing good for someone else. You say, well, why is that a bad thing? Because Jesus didn't do it. That's why it's a bad thing. Jesus set goals to help other people. The cross is 100% about letting go of your whole life, as Mary Beth described Sharon, all in. I think there are so many people in pain today. Read the statistics, read the articles, loneliness, sickness. People are dying. I'm not talking about COVID-19. This week, I've seen 3 people I've known in my life pass away. We act like the only thing going on is what we're watching on television. While television is projecting what's going on globally, people's lives are being impacted every day. People are going to the hospital. And I think that if anybody dies anywhere, it's a shame and it's a sadness. But what I rejoice in is, as a Christian, not only do we have an answer for life, we have an answer for death. And so while we fight our various causes, let's not forget, when this is all over, the only thing will matter is, did we have a relationship with God? And we have the courage to make sure that happens. What helps? Let's get a little lighter here. I got a little heavy right there, didn't I? Didn't mean to. There it is, the staff. You got your telescope, you got your map, you got your glasses, and you got the compass. If you don't know what all those things are, you can go look at our former episodes. And this seems like a beautiful time to reflect, doesn't it? A time to take communion. As we take communion, I will pray first, and then we'll be able to have a freedom flows called The Weight. I think it'll be a good meditation about being willing to take on the weight and the burden and the challenges of the people around us. Let's pray. Father, we believe that Jesus died on a cross, and we know that you raised him from the dead. And because of that, we want to be able to embrace our cross, which is our destiny to help, serve, save, and do good for others. As we listen to this music, help us to have reflective thoughts that bring us closer to being the Christians you've called us to be. And help those who do not believe to be able to find their faith if they're searching, and help us to be able to help them. In the name of Jesus we pray, amen.
Nazareth, was feeling half past dead. I just need some place where I can lay my head. Hey mister, can you tell me where a man might find a bed? He just grinned and shook my hand. No is what he said. Take a load off Annie, take a load for free. Take a load off Annie and put the load right on me. Yes, I picked up my bag, I went looking for a place to hide. When I saw Carmen and the devil, they was walking side by side. I said, hey Carmen, come on, let's go downtown. She said, I gotta go, but my friend can stick around. Take a load off Annie, take a load free. Take a load off Annie and put the load right on me. Yeah. say. It's just old Luke and Luke's waiting for the judgment day. Well, Luke, my friend, what about young Annie Lee? He said, do me a favor, son, won't you stay and keep Annie Lee company? Take a load off Annie, take a load for free. Take a load off Annie, and put the load right on me. Yes, you gotta put the load right on me. Put the load, yes. Put the load right on me. Put the load right on me.
And now for a word on the vision of the church, where we're going and what we're doing. Take a look.
As we prepare to give our contribution this morning, we want to tell you all how grateful we are for your generosity each week.
Because of your giving, we've been able and ready to successfully navigate these unprecedented times. Over the last 5 years, we have hired young, dynamic interns who not only lead the campus, teen, and professional ministries, but also have web, video, and design skills to build our digital ministry. It's been great to see the impact and quality of our Sunday live stream services.
You've also given us the resources to keep building for the future. We're looking forward to the opening of our campus and teen center called Common Ground. Designed with teen and campus students in mind, this is a place for them to meet, to hold services together, and to build the future together. Now, let's enjoy the sweet sounds of our PayPal contribution instructions.
Thank you for joining us today. It's been awesome to have our friends in San Diego. It's been awesome to have our friends who are emailing us all over the country and all over the world. Your faith, your energy, your ideas mean a lot. Hey, that includes my neighbor, Tim. Shout out for Tim. You know, as we close out, we're going to give you a Freedom Flows. It's going to be one of my instant classic redos. And you know why? Because we're going to change the world. We all miss being together. I know all of us do. We miss Shoreline. We miss the expos. We miss the leadership conferences. We miss being able to just, I can feel it and see it now. Some of you cooking up, especially you Oakland folks, cooking up some of the sweetest tasting food that you always give me free at the Shoreline. Kind of has me wishing we can go to the holiday celebration in December, but that one's a little in danger. But here's the bottom line. While all this is going on, some of the most transformative moves are taking place in our fellowship. We're becoming more dynamic. We're reaching more people than we ever have, and that's exciting. Thank you for those of you who join us who don't go to church, who don't even like church. Thank you for giving us a shot. We appreciate it. We hope all of you will go ahead and remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel and subscribe to our Deep Spirituality channel. Why is that? Because it helps us reach more people. And even if you're not really interested in God, you may have friends who are, and you can share it with them. And I just want to thank all of you, because in these turbulent times, in these difficult times, these painful times, economically, socially, emotionally, mentally, we're helping each other. Let's keep doing that, and let's change the world, because guess what? A change is going to come. Same bat time, same bat place, same bat channel. Enjoy.
I was born by the river in a little tent, and just like that river I've been running ever since. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes it will. It's been too hard living, but I'm afraid to die, 'cause I don't know what's up there beyond the sky. It's been a long time coming, but I know a change gonna come. Oh, yes it will. I go to the movies and I go downtown. Somebody keep telling me, don't hang around. It's been a long time coming, but I know change gonna come. Oh, yes it will. Then I go to my brother and I say, brother, help me please, yeah. But he winds up knocking me back down on my knees. Whoa, there've been times that I thought I wouldn't last for long. Now I think I'm able to carry on. It's been a long time coming, but I know change gonna come. Oh, yes it will. It's been a long time coming, but I know change gonna come. Oh, yes it will.